Hello, 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 and welcome to this very hot, very humid Wednesday evening on June 25th, 2025. We were not live last week. We had bad storms rolling through the area, and Justin lost power right before we were going to go live. So we decided to have that episode today. My name's Matt, the host of the show. Joining me today is, you'll see two faces there. Both of them familiar. One is Justin McGovern. How's it going, Justin? Sweet hat.
It's good to be back on the show. I feel like it's been a good almost like 3 weeks since I've been on our show.
I know. We've been on a couple other shows, but we'll get to that in a second. The other person joining us today is our soccer analyst and good friend, Tony. What's going on, man?
Thank you guys for having me. Good to be back in the saddle.
Yeah, I mean, you did such a fantastic job last time with the MLS episode that we figured that we would just have you on again.
You flatter me.
So, Justin, you want to tell us what we're talking about today, or are we just going to babble on about who we are?
All right, let's stop babbling and get after it. This week's episode, we're going to be... I think many people in college football are frustrated with all of the off-the-field shenanigans that go on at the FBS level, the constant politicking in court, the players trying to hold teams hostage over money and stuff. So it's time that we talk about a more pure division of football, the subdivision, FCS football. And really, we're trying to help others get into this division. You know, there's people like Tony over here. They do not have a favorite team yet. They don't know the storylines of the teams. And it's hard for them to get into this division when they don't have those two elements. So that is what we're here to do tonight. We're going to bridge that gap.
All right. I can't wait. FCS is a topic, much like MLS, that I feel like is underrated and not paid attention to as much. And, lucky for us, not covered as much. We here at Updog Sports Talk, we like to stick up for the little guy. Hence why you've seen MLS episodes, basketball episodes, now FCS episodes. When we got our start a handful of years ago, we got tired of the big media outlets just talking about the LeBron Jameses, the Lakers, the then Patriots, the Tom Bradys, really just the top 1% of professional sports. So what we like to do is we like to also represent the bottom 1%. The Earl Boykins of the world. The Lance Nicks. The Miguel Cairos. The names that you don't really understand. And that is Updog Sports Talk. And so sit back, relax, and listen to us jabber on about FCS football. So Justin, we have an exciting episode today. And I think we should kick it off with, quite possibly, the most exciting conference in FCS, the Big Sky. And as our good friend Queso put on Twitter earlier today, it's a yummy conference.
Sure did.
I'm so glad that we could have done that to him.
Me indeed.
So
yes.
we're going to need to retweet that so we give everyone else context.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So the Big Sky is one of our favorites to talk about. It is, you could also call it the National Park Conference because it is so close to all of the national parks. Well, really just a lot of them. It's not possible to have a conference big enough to be close to all of them. But this conference is out west, one of my favorite regions of the country, and regionally aligned very well. Like, it's pretty cool. So we'll kind of just go in alphabetical order here. We like to talk about all the teams in this conference, so we'll go over all of them. Cal Poly is set to be probably going to be the last California team left in this conference. We'll get to that in a moment, but this is a team where if you want to get in on the Big Sky, but you're trying to get in towards a team that's trying to grow a little bit, you know, they've struggled for the last few years, new facilities coming in, stuff like that. This is your team. They're also called the Mustangs, which is pretty cool. The last time I can remember them doing something big was there was a time, I think like back in it may have been 2007, when they played Wisconsin in November for some reason and almost beat them.
And they're really good at baseball.
They are really good at baseball. Should have made the tournament there. Oh, well, they did. Matt said they should have made the tournament, but then I had to point out to him they actually did.
I like to cause chaos and just spread rumors.
Yeah. Although they play in the Big West in baseball. Next team on our list here, the Eastern Washington Eagles. You want a crazy field. This is one of your teams here because they play on what I like to call the Inferno turf. And maybe we could even pull up a visual representation here for
I'm
Tony.
working on
'Cause
it. I'm working
I don't
on
know if he's seen this before, but this thing is a thing of beauty. This is a program that has had a lot of success. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Cooper Cup. He came from this program, and they won an FCS national championship in 2010. Oh yes, there we go. Look at that.
See if I can get a bigger. Nope, that's a link. Well, you get the idea.
There we go. But yeah, this is Tony. What is your first reaction when you see this field?
Honestly, it reminds me of Boise with their, blue. And that was like the first time I've ever seen a field that's not green, playing on it though, you'd think it would strain your eyes a little bit. I don't know.
Or be a little
I feel
hot.
like it would be pretty intimidating.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get a better home field advantage than, psychological warfare with a different colored turf.
Yeah, and they tend to be pretty strong at home. Last year, though, was a little bit different. They lost a few home games just because they played a lot of the tougher teams at home. They gave them a battle, though. They had a rough go of it on the road. But this is a team that's kind of trying to find their way back. They won a national title back in 2010, so they've had recent success. Originally
Cup
had
went
notes
there?
and lost them.
Cooper Cup played there.
Yep. And I originally had notes and unfortunately lost my notes, but they played for another one pretty recently as well. So this is an exciting program. I believe they were the second team in Division I football after Boise State to get a colored turf too.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Next, we have to talk about the Kibbe Dome. The Idaho Vandals. This is
Former FBS team.
Yeah, this is the only team in FCS right now that once was an FBS team. Now, the drop down didn't go smoothly for them for a pretty long time. They really struggled, but then they got a good head coach in there. He really marketed them really well, kind of rallied the fan base a little bit, got the world to realize the Kibbe Dome is actually really cool. And even though he's gone now, this is still a program that's really on the rise. They made the quarterfinals of the playoffs the last 2 years, and with their next coach, they're bringing in strong recruits, so this is a team that might be able to break into the top of the Big Sky pretty soon. And then we have Idaho State, which for a long time has been my personal favorite. And Tony, they might be one of yours too. They are the Bengals. You're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, so.
I am what some call a cat daddy. So I do like the big cats now.
Yeah, and I see a sign behind you that says "Welcome to the Jungle," and some people might say that when you waltz into Holt Arena. Actually, we may say that. I don't know if that's well said. If that's said a lot in Pocatello, but this is a team that I've always just had a real like for. I would say before a team we'll talk about later got to start football, this was my favorite FCS team. They run a very fun offense, but they haven't had a lot of success in recent years, but they're slowly rising their way back up a little bit, and I am on the train. I think this year is going to be the year they finally break through and make the playoffs. So if you want to get in a little bit, you're not starting at the top. You're starting with a team that's kind of on the rise a little bit and a little bit fun. This is your team. Next, we'll do the Montana Grizzlies. Now, this is... I think I even heard my wife yell, "Go Grizz." So Montana is... This is the biggest brand of FCS football. If you want to jump in with a team that everyone knows is very recognizable and has a very cool grizzly bear, this is your team. They play in one of the most awesome stadiums I've ever been in my entire life. I was at the season opener against Missouri State last year, and it seats 26,000, but it gets louder than 60,000 in that place. It is unreal. I am getting goosebumps just talking about it. So, very cool team, very cool stadium. They have not won a championship in a little bit. You're not, even though you're pulling from the biggest brand here, you can kind of justify it a little bit by saying, hey, we haven't won in a while, so I'm not trying to just cheat and start at the top floor there.
I guess you could say they're the Notre Dame of FCS.
They really are a little bit. I feel like I've seen people compare them to Notre Dame or Texas of FCS. So that makes a lot of sense there. Then we have to go to their rivals on the other side of the Brawl of the Wild, or known in the state of Montana as the Cats Grizz game. Montana State. This is one of the top programs in FCS. They are in contention for the championship every single year now. But it wasn't always this way. It took them a little bit to build up to this in recent years. But they are here. They are easily one of the top 4 programs at the moment. And you can still feel like you're getting in at the right time because they have not won the championship since 1980. They made the championship game last year, lost in a tight one in North Dakota State. And they're kind of starting a little bit over. They had a senior-led group last year, but still going to be one of the top teams to follow along with. Northern Arizona, the Lumberjacks.
Yeah.
Might be reason alone. They played a really cool dome as well. And another team that's kind of on the rise, made the playoffs last year. And we go to a couple teams here. If you want to start at the ground floor again, I'm not really sure where their direction's going. Northern Colorado, they're kind of working their way through a little bit.
Bear.
Yeah, they won one game last year. They're kind of trying to figure it out a little bit, but Portland State is in that same category as well. And then they're currently in the Big Sky, but they're about to not be. This is the most hated team at the FCS level. Everyone else hates them at the moment. We've been talking about them a lot this whole offseason, wondering what's going on there, but eventually Sacramento State is just a fascinating storyline at this point. They tried to reclassify to FBS. In the process, their president kind of rubbed some people the wrong way. I mean, when he says playing at this level is like playing junior varsity, that got him called out pretty well when they didn't get granted to FBS. So you kind of burned the bridge of being at this level, and now you're going independent in 2026 at the moment. They are in a fascinating spot. Like, if they don't find their way to FBS, they are... I don't know who's going to schedule them because everyone hates them at this point.
But they're going to hate them even more after the go-go offense gets a-going.
Yeah. That offense is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, definitely tune in this team this year. It's kind of, I mean, you're really punting on your decision if you pick them as your favorite FCS team because they probably will find a way up to FBS in 2026. So you're only getting a 1-year rental here, but this is the team that's hated. So you feel like a rebel, this might be your team. Then,
we have a comment in the chat about Sacramento State.
Oh, yes, here we go.
Yeah, Huskers was saying we're bigger than garbage Sacramento State. Sac State has facilities that resemble a beer league.
And not only that, we're also getting some Northern Colorado hate right now.
Yeah.
Montana is saying Northern Colorado is the biggest disgrace in college football.
No,
Shots
they
fired.
do not deserve that.
We've gotten some FCS rivalries going on in the chat.
I
right
love
now.
the Big Sky is getting heated right away. We started off with a banger here. Man, poor Northern Colorado. They did not deserve that. Another one where you may be punting on your decision is UC Davis. They are only in the Big Sky for football. They're on the rise. They made the quarterfinals last year, finished the season ranked 5th in the nation.
They were the
had a really
Arizona
good year.
State of FCS last year.
They really were. Like, they kind of just rose. Like, people wondered they would take a step back. Their head coach retired entering last year. And instead, they had a fantastic year, one of their best of all time. Now, this is another one where you may be punting down a couple years because that Mountain West membership says that the Mountain West is only at like 8 teams right now in FBS. So they need to get bigger at some point. And the Mountain West has to invite UC Davis first before they invite anyone else from FCS. It feels like it's a matter of when, not if. So this is, again, a team that you are renting this team. You're not having them for the long run here. And then we wrap up the Big Sky. Well, almost wrap up the Big Sky. We got to talk about Weber State, another cool team that has purple as their color and the mountains behind them. They're one of those teams that can every once in a while come out of nowhere and really surprise you. They had a really good semifinal run a little around a decade back that was really good. They've produced some good players too, so this is another fun team. But we wrap up the Big Sky now with today's news.
Breaking news. Wait. Oh, wait, hold on.
There it is. So, actually, like when I was trying to share our video earlier, as we went live, I came across an announcement from the commissioner's desk. So I am going to read this announcement. The time is right for the Big Sky to bring in Utah Tech and bring back Southern Utah. The addition of rising rival athletic departments from these two universities, located squarely within our geographic footprint of the western United States, reinforce long-term stability and success of our league. Amid a rapidly evolving national landscape that each day seemingly pulls college sports farther from its true mission, this move underscores our commitment to a strong and sustainable future at the top of FCS and across several key sports. Both of these programs will bring institutional alignment that will enhance the Big Sky's tradition as a national leader that continually aspires to elevate the experience for our constituents.
Sound it out there, Justin.
Man,
So-
they did such a good job reading that announcement too until right at the end.
We are good friends of the Big Sky. We love the Big Sky. We will support the Big Sky through and through. But they aren't the only conference that we're representing in this show. I think now is a good time to switch gears, Justin, and go all the way across the country. Let's visit the CAA.
The CAA, so this conference is just a muddled mess. A few years back, they started losing some of their better teams. Like, they lost James Madison, for example. I know Matt loves James Madison, so there you go, Matt.
My hat's right here.
James Madison mentioned. And their response every time they lost teams was just to add twice as many teams as they lost. And eventually it ballooned to this ridiculous 16-team league. They get a lot of hate from the rest of the subdivision because somehow, some way, it feels like a lot of their top teams don't end up playing each other, and then they get better records and earn more bids to the playoffs. So it's a bit of a controversial league, but there's some interesting teams in here. You've got teams like Albany and Towson who can have a really good season just out of nowhere. Albany made the semifinals just back in 2023, so they've done quite a bit there. You have some fun mascots like the Campbell Fighting Camels. If you really want to start with a newer team, sort of, the Campbell Fighting Camels obviously have a fun mascot. Orange is a cool color scheme. Obviously, I'm wearing there's a lot of orange on this show actually right now with all of us here. But they have never made the FCS playoffs before, so you can say you started on the ground floor with this team.
Yeah, you can rip some cigs with Joe Camel.
And so this is why the CAA is so weird, because you also have HBCUs in here like Hampton and North Carolina A&T. You have teams in the Northeast that I really just hope eventually split off and make the Yankee Conference come back. Like Maine, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. Those are some interesting teams that are usually up there in contention a little bit. Maine is another team that came out of nowhere a few years back and had a semifinal run. And Rhode Island is a team that, if you like pain, this is a team that you suffered for a long time.
Bengals fans, listen up.
It's our
Rhode
time.
Island went
Hold
from-
on. Let me specify. Cincinnati Bengals fans, listen up.
Well, no, I mean Idaho State kind of until they finished rising up. Idaho State kind of falls in the same category. Yeah, Rhode Island went from 1985 to 2024 without any sort of success or making the playoffs. This past year, they finally made it, and they're on the rise a little bit. They might have a top 10 team again this year. But this conference is continuing to bleed itself dry a little bit. Villanova and William & Mary are set to join the Patriot League. So they're heading out there, and I'm curious to see how many more teams leave the ship in this one.
Two things, Justin. One, this conference may have the only team in all of sports named the Spiders.
Not anymore. Not anymore. We'll get there later.
And then
They left. But
all right. But the other one is Stony Brook. Randomly, in college basketball in 2008, Stony Brook turned into this weird powerhouse that was unbeatable. And they happened to be in my conference, so I was a little pissed at that. But yeah, this conference, surprisingly, I know a lot of people that have gone to a few of these schools, and it's like a conference of that, like, I never would have thought 20, 30 years ago that I would have met anybody from any of these colleges. So it's kind of funny.
yeah, the Sea Wolves. I mean, Sea Wolves is a unique name, so you got to give them that. This conference is unfortunately one where it's locked away on something called Flow Sports. Don't even bother to look it up. I've heard it's really, really bad. So that's the downside. You can't really watch a lot of the games. And I am really sad about this because this conference has possibly the most electric offense in the subdivision. The Monmouth Hawks.
Monmouth.
They
to mess with our friend, inside joke, we call it Monmouth.
Yeah. Yeah, he did not like when we called him Monmouth once, and we just kept it going. But they put up a ton of stats last year with a ridiculous passing game. And they returned their quarterback, they returned their running back, they returned their top 4 receivers and the top tight end. They have some of the best skill players on any team in the subdivision this year. It is ridiculous. Now, of course, their big problem is when they play tougher competition, they don't have the guys on the lines. But this team is going to be a ton of fun to watch. And their head coach, this program has existed for 30-something years. They've had the same head coach the entire time.
Nice.
All right.
So we can move on from that conference. You've kind of gone over quite a few teams there. So why don't we switch gears, keep it in the Northeast, and let's go over the smart guys, the Ivy League. And guess what, Justin? They're in the FCS playoff for the first time in a long time. Can't wait to see it.
It's about time. It is about time we see the Ivy League join everyone else. You have...
They've been brought down to our level.
Yes!
Not so smart now, are they? Huh?
You have some interesting teams like Cornell, who plays a lot of offense and doesn't really care about defense. Columbia and Dartmouth are some programs that are on the rise in this conference. And then you have your usual top contenders, the game, Harvard and Yale.
The 2 top scoring teams from this conference last season.
Yeah, and Harvard won the conference last year. Well, actually, it was a 3-way tie between Harvard, Columbia, and Dartmouth, and I think they recognize all of them as Ivy League champs as a result. Yeah, Tony, I think you have some experience over there at Harvard.
Yeah. My work's in Boston, and when in Boston, you got to check out the Italian food and Fenway and all those. But we bopped on over to Harvard, and it was in the fall, so that definitely helped. Honestly, I was kind of surprised. I thought they'd be, real, nerdy types, they'd just visually look smarter. But, they just look like regular people. So,
well, I mean, it's a plus. They didn't immediately ask you to leave.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could have been on borrowed time, but at least they were polite about it,
Yeah.
Man, if I tried to step foot on that campus, they would kick me off right away.
Yeah, if I got within 100 miles of there, they'd be like, dude, here's a restraining order.
They just...
Matt. What's awesome is Dartmouth did really well for the first time in a long time, and for a little bit they had some bragging rights going in this conference. So adding them to the playoff is going to just add more. Now, Justin, did they expand the playoff, or did they just say, or did Harvard or did Ivy League just go, you know what, we'll play you guys?
Yeah, pretty much the Ivy League just decided, oh, you know what, we'll join now. We'll be a part of this.
Maybe we'll see FCS playoff expansion coming soon.
Yeah, we're at 24 teams. I think we're pretty good. Yeah, there's just one less at-large bid out for the taking now as a result.
Well, we are going from smart to maybe not as smart. Sticking on the east side, we're pretty far east here. The MEAC, Justin, what can you tell us about the MEAC? Should we root for any of these teams?
Oh yes, there's a lot of choices here. You've got your usual. Now we're going to start with our usual contenders before we get to the real juicy storyline here. You have North Carolina Central and South Carolina State. They are your typical contenders. Howard is capable of winning every once in a while. So those 3 are some really good ones to kind of jump in on. But where this conference gets real spicy is you have Deshaun Jackson jumping in and becoming the coach of Delaware State. You have Michael Vick jumping in and becoming the head coach of Norfolk State. This conference got real interesting real quick. And remember,
Yes.
this is a 16 conference, so they play a lot of non-conference games, and then their conference season is a 5-week sprint.
And to
Anything
remind
can
all the
happen.
viewers out there, Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson played together in Philly. Now they got to play against each other, and this is going to be so interesting. That's a not just for this conference, but all of FCS. That is something that is going to have to be watched
Yeah.
because that game is going to be so electric. So
They moved it to Thursday in the Eagles Stadium, by the way. So they absolutely plan to put this on linear TV. So make sure you
I think that is a very good decision and probably one of the most competent decisions we've seen from the FCS television deals in a while. So looking forward to that. Moving on from them, the second best, in my opinion, conference in all of FCS, and one of our favorites, and we're actually pretty cool with them as well, the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Justin, what can you tell us about these teams?
So secretly, Matt, you actually did not know that you just offended them by calling them the second best conference. They consider themselves the best conference in FCS football. This is always an interesting conference to watch. They have the two powerhouses. So if you want to pick a team that is dominant and just lord your dominance over everyone else that talks about FCS football, North Dakota State is your team. They have won
They're the
ridiculous
Alabamas.
amount of championships. They're more than that even. They're a more dominant version of what Alabama is.
What is it, 10 championships in 15 years?
Yes, something of that level. It is ridiculous what they have done. The Bison just remember it's also pronounced Bison, by the way. They are just the top team.
I'm getting heat already for second best comment.
I told
that was
you.
quick.
I told you. You offended them. You do not call the Missouri Valley the second best conference. This conference is loaded. I'll tell you what.
Well, they don't interact with me quite as much, so
That is
interact
fair.
with me more, and maybe we could talk. But no, I mean,
we do not get any sort of love from the official conference.
when you do talk about FCS teams, you do talk about most often is North Dakota State, South Dakota State, formerly Missouri State. But like this conference does have all the power. This is the SEC of
Yeah.
FCS.
South Dakota State is kind of your, like, you want to start at the top, but, like, you want to be, like, the slight rebel to the dominant team. That being said, South Dakota State has won 2 of the past 3 championships, so they're really good as well. And they'll be up there again this year. You have other teams that are on the rise, like Illinois State and South Dakota. South Dakota is kind of one of those teams where you gotta like a little bit of pain because, you know, your
What
two
is
biggest
pain?
rivals,
French
You're
bread.
you're trying to go on the rise here, but also your 2 biggest rivals are the dominant teams in the sport, so that's got to be rough. South Dakota fans do like a little bit of pain, but at the same time, they're also pretty excited to see what's cooking for their program. And then you also have another team that likes a lot of pain, Southern Illinois. Like, these guys usually start up there in contention every year, and then something just seems to go wrong. Like last year, they spent the early part of the year in the top 15. Quarterback went down. They tanked. They tanked to, I think, 4-win season, if I remember correctly. And then finally, to wrap up this conference, you have the historical power. Youngstown State, the Penguins. They are second to North Dakota State among active subdivision teams with the most championships, but they have not had much success lately. They have a championship appearance in 2016 with, Matt, this is a familiar name for us, Bo Pelini as their coach.
Nice. Yeah, that's a reach into the pocket right there.
That was a wild era. By the way, that was like the only time that Bo Pelini got them in the playoffs. He got them in the playoffs, got them to the championship, and otherwise it didn't go anywhere.
Brian points out, Brian was the one that was like second best. He also points out South Dakota took a huge hit in the portal too.
Yeah. That was the other heartbreak for them. They were shaping up to maybe be the best team in the Missouri Valley this year with everything they had coming back, and then the spring portal came. Their best offensive lineman came down to our territory in Cincinnati to play for the Bearcats. They lost several linemen. Like FBS teams that saw some needs kind of looked at South Dakota and were like, some of these guys look pretty interesting. We'll kind of just jump in there and take them.
Well,
but this is still going to be a really good team this year.
From the SEC of FCS to the NEC of SCS. Justin, what can you tell us about the Northeast Conference?
Yeah, so your top teams in this conference are the Duquesne Dukes, Robert Morris, and then kind of on the rise there is Central Connecticut State. These are usually the teams that kind of enter the playoffs usually without a seeding. How the playoffs work is like the top 16 get a seed and everyone else is kind of thrown in there regionally. So usually these teams are very underfunded for the most part, except for Duquesne and Robert Morris, who they're still underfunded, don't get me wrong, but they have a little bit more than some of these other teams. We have St. Francis, who is about to drop down to Division III.
Yeah,
so
that's sad.
We
Rip.
say goodbye to St. Francis. It was nice knowing you. Congratulations again on your win over Kent State last year. And then you have some teams in here that are straight up bag chasers. Like Mercyhurst just jumped in, and these guys will travel all around the country just chasing those paycheck games. It is something else. Long Island University, the Shocks. They're up in New York, so you gotta pronounce it the Shocks. They're another one of those. I think they play the Florida Gators this year. Who would have thought between Gators and Sharks that the Sharks would not be anywhere close to Florida?
You make a great point there. And what I like about Long Island is they actually used to have a basketball team, Long Island Brooklyn. And remember that whole Stony Brook thing?
Yeah.
Earlier? That was the team that I had, and I had moved them and then just got destroyed by Stony Brook the whole time.
So the whole story was like Long Island Brooklyn and Long Island Post merged together. None of them were the Sharks at all. And for some reason they chose the Sharks after that.
I mean, Sharks is a good name. If you remember Any Given Sunday, the Miami Sharks, that was a good movie.
They have an interesting color scheme too. It's like a light blue and yellow.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting, Justin, is moving from video game basketball to a conference that actually is pretty good at basketball, the Patriot League. So why don't, and we're not talking about basketball here, but why don't you tell us about their football teams? Like, are they as good in football as they are in basketball, or like, what can we expect here?
Well, this conference is actually rising a little bit. So for a while there, they had some good runs from teams like Fordham and Holy Cross. Like, those teams usually are pretty good. So is Lafayette and Lehigh. But they really have expanded their footprint here with some of these ads. I referenced Villanova and William & Mary joining the conference earlier. You tried to jump in with the Richmond Spiders. This is where Richmond is. Richmond is now playing here. And this conference may have its best two teams facing off in the season opener. Lehigh and Richmond play each other in the opener. Nice. And that may decide who ultimately is the best team in this conference.
Yeah, that'll be a good one to watch. Do you know if that's going to be televised?
Probably not. You have to get ESPN Plus for that. But
we have it.
It is. So you have some other teams here like Bucknell. Bucknell, I feel bad for them. They were in contention last year, and last year may have been their chance. Now, with all these better, more competitive teams jumping in, I think Bucknell may have missed their opportunity. I remember talking with friend of the show, Omar, about that a few weeks back, and we're disappointed for them in that one. And then you also have Georgetown. You may know them from basketball. They play football in this conference, and they play at a severe disadvantage. They are the only team in this conference that does not offer scholarships.
That's terrible.
Like, at that point, they probably should just join the Pioneer League.
Yeah. Brian points out that Colgate made an FCS title in 2003.
Yes.
Who would have thunk that a toothpaste company was playing football?
I really wanted them to hire Mel Tucker. I know they couldn't, but at this point of the show, I guess I don't know. No one cares about him anymore. But all I know is I've heard back in the day that, like, during practices and stuff, Mel Tucker would yell, "Get it together! I'm going to send your ass to Colgate!" And so I was really hoping they would just offer him the job, because
That was
obviously
a good
he's
impression.
jobless.
If any of you know Mel Tucker, that's a good impression. There's a conference that might have some of the cooler names in all of sports. Justin, we're not talking about SoCom, we're talking about SoCon.
How long did you think about that one?
About 12 seconds. I don't really put a whole lot of thought into what I say.
Yeah, so this is usually one of the more competitive conferences. Obviously, they took some hits way back because this used to be a top tier league. They had Georgia Southern winning a lot of titles. They had Appalachian State beating Tony's Michigan team and winning national titles. Ever since those went on, those teams moved on. They haven't really expanded, and I think last year kind of felt like a low point a little bit with only one team in the playoffs. This is a conference that usually expects to put multiple teams in. That being said, you've got some pretty fun ones in here. You have Chattanooga, they're usually always in contention. East Tennessee State is still a relatively newer program. The Buccaneers, they're a lot of fun. I really want to see them continue to improve. They nearly beat North Dakota State last year and came close in a few other games, so they could have had a much better year. Furman, just 2 years ago, played Montana tough at Washington Grizzly Stadium. Montana would go on to the FCS championship. Furman was in that game until the end, and they unfortunately lost Tyler Huff to FBS, and that kind of sent them backwards last year. But don't rule out a rebound for them. Mercer is really the team that's on the rise here. They made the quarterfinals last year. Obviously, they were the only ones that made the playoffs. And the people in Macon, Georgia, really love this team. They are invested, and it's continuing to rise. Mike Jacobs stuck around there. He really believes in what he's building. He's a really good coach. So if you're really looking to get into someone in the South that is beginning to build up a little bit and continuing to improve, and might break through here eventually for a championship, Mercer might be your team.
Yeah, as Brian points out, SoCon has really great fan bases too.
Yes. We've had some great interaction with SoCon fan bases, and I find myself rooting for this conference a lot because these people really care about their teams. And you see that with the Citadel too. Like the Citadel, they had some great runs a decade back. Don't forget 2015 when they beat South Carolina. And they kind of fell on tough times in recent years. They're slowly working their way back up. The Citadel and VMI are kind of unique because they're like those military academies. So if you're an Army or Navy fan, then you may want to look this direction. Western Carolina is a team that's kind of trying to rise a little bit. They've had some success in the past, but not super recently. But they're set to have a pretty good year this year, I think. I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. And then Wofford is the last team I'll touch on in this conference. They are a team that also can come out of nowhere and have a lot of success. I'm trying to remember the year. The year escapes me at the moment. But they made a championship appearance, I think, against North Dakota State probably a little over a decade back.
Well, moving on from SoCon, you can hop on a big old jet airliner, and you don't have to go too far away. You can just, I don't know, maybe take a United flight down to the United Athletic Conference. Justin, tell us about this. That one, I was thinking about that one the entire time you were talking about the SoCon.
I really did not know where this was going to go either. Like the way you were going on that one. Anyways, the United Athletic Conference is a good combination of teams that can kind of come out of nowhere and have a good year. Like Austin P, whose fans chant "Let's go P." Abilene Christian. You have North Alabama's kind of on the rise a little bit. You have a historical power like Eastern Kentucky. Eastern Kentucky made the FCS championship from every single year for 4 straight years until 1993, I believe it was. And then they haven't been back since. Now, some of these teams, you're kind of wondering if they're going to go FBS at some point. I know Eastern Kentucky certainly has their eyes on it. Tarleton State is
Your dog's in trouble.
This is what happens when there's 2 dogs in the house. Tarleton State is going to go FBS at some point, so it's hard for me to recommend them. But Yeah.
Well,
And then finally, sorry, I
No,
almost missed my last talking point there, which was Central Arkansas. Go ahead and pull up this field, Matt. I'm not even going to describe it. I just want you to pull it up.
we did not have this planned, so bear with me. Give me 1 second. Hey,
I'm
Tony's
back.
Hey.
I locked my wife out of the house, and so she was texting me, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go up and unlock it.
So I can't just choose one, but yeah, you could see it's striped in purple and gray, and it's pretty awesome. Probably one of the best fields out there. Justin, what can you tell us about Central Arkansas?
I think at some point they're going to finally break out and have a good year. Like, last year, they spent part of the year, like, they spent a good part of the year in the top 10. And then all of a sudden just collapse at the end. But I always like to tweet random highlights of this team just because, when they're at home, just because it makes people go, whoa, what is that? When they see that field. It is the most outrageous field in existence, and I'm all about it. Just, when you're a college program, just be as weird as you can be. And, set yourselves apart, and that's what they did.
Yeah. I guess for the next conference, we should all be Leonard Skinner fans. You know why, Justin?
Why?
Because we'll be singing songs about the Southland. Southland Conference. Let's go. Wrapping this thing up with some good football.
Yeah. Pull up the image of this conference, because I think we need to show the image of it, because it's really beautiful how they put this conference together.
Yeah, 1 sec. We texted a lot today, so.
I know. Matt's got to pull it up without pulling up our internal show conversations here. I'll start and
Leak the text.
He does that just for the sake of time. But you've got teams, they're kind of newer. You got East Texas A&M. They're eligible for the first time. Recently, they changed their name from. Let me make sure I clear my throat here, because it was long. They were previously Texas A&M at Commerce. So good on them for kind of simplifying things and giving people a better idea where they are. That one's an interesting one. They've got Incarnate Word, who is a team that is a rising contender. They have actually a pretty decent NIL investment as well, so they are really a team that seems to be poised to be able to compete with the big dogs at some point. They always put up a ton of numbers on offense. They've got Cam Ward started out his college career there, and lots of other good quarterbacks that started their college career there. And you've got, look at that. Now that's all the teams in the conference. You can fit them in one small map with 2 states on it.
This is the definition of a regional conference. This is fantastic. This is what Justin and I have been advocating since we started this show. Regional conferences make the most sense. Non-conference games are meant for the rest of the country.
Yeah, that's a real creamy setup there, just regionally locked 2 states.
And one of
when
our
you're
favorite
in this situation here, like where you've got people that go to each of these schools, always crossing paths with each other. The rivalries just mean more, and it's truly beautiful. Like I really enjoy this conference a lot.
one of my favorite storylines of this conference. Do you know what that is, Justin?
What is it?
What do you think it is, Tony?
Leonard Skinner reference?
No, not this time. I did really like that, but the UTRGV, the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley, Vaqueros, started a football program. They announced it a few years ago. This is their first year of true competition. They played some exhibition games last year, but this year, August 31st, their first game ever being played down in the tip of Texas. We're excited. Unfortunately, the schedule did not work for us to make it out there. It would have been so awesome to be like, hey, I have gone to the first ever game at this school. I think that would have been dope. Unfortunately, I used up all my vacation time in February. So
it is a little bit difficult for us to make it all the way down there.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not
Cincinnati.
really close to Texas, so maybe we can see if we can get some Texas friends to put boots on the ground and drive about 10 hours to get down there.
But yeah, no, if you want to start brand new, just pick a team that is getting started for the first time, and you're starting from the beginning of this program's existence. UTRGV is your team, and I think there's a lot of excitement around this program. It's been coming for a while. A lot of the fans and a lot of people in the area are excited to see it arrive. And I think this is going to be a rising program. I think this program is going to be really, really good by the time they're eligible in a few years.
Yeah, and Brian points out that just between these two states, there's enough talent at the high school level just to support these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're going to continue to see that rise, too, as more and more high school players get overlooked because everyone's focused on the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So you're going to continue to see a lot of talent available for a lot of these teams to grab, and you're going to see teams like McNeese kind of go on the rise a little bit. I think Lamar and Southeastern are kind of other programs that could be making their way up there a little bit. And then you have some that are just kind of trying to find their way. There's two teams them to end this. I'm ending this on a sad note here. There's two that dealt with some pain in some bad ways. Stephen F. Austin is one team that has dealt with a lot of pain. Tony, quiz question. What's the F stand for?
Franklin.
Nope. I wanted to see what you guessed. I thought like you can come up with something interesting.
Just checking to see if you're paying attention.
They
we
actually
reveal
just
that
picked
to
me
the-
up off the street. I've never even heard of football.
Should we reveal the F to the audience, or should we make them look that up?
Make them look it up. It's a nice
Okay.
Googleable thing.
So this program only made one championship appearance. They were tied they actually had the lead for most of the fourth quarter, and then Georgia Southern tied it up with 6 minutes left, and then took the victory with a minute left. Not only did they come close to a championship and not get it, but also they wanted to move up to FBS, and instead had to watch as their biggest rival, Sam Houston, did it instead. And then they had to come back to the Southland after they left that conference previously. So that's
Right.
a little bit tough. And then Northwestern State is on a 20-game losing streak. So if you're starting at the ground floor with this team, they have not won since November of 2022. But hey, you could say, hey, when this team was struggling, I jumped in, and now they're getting better.
I was a fan of this team when they were stinky. I think that's enough FCS talk for today.
So,
Brian,
Tony,
thanks
have
for
you decided?
sending that out there, Brian. Brian has revealed it for us. So,
I wasn't far off.
Yeah, Fuller, for those of you wondering at home. Tony, after all of this, and we left a few conferences out, but after all of this, what is your impression? Who do you think that you would root for?
You know what? And part of my homework to be on the show this week was, to really give some thought to this conference that I haven't given much thought to in the past. And in some ways, some of the schools, I've never heard of. So, it's great that you guys are bringing some light, that we're bringing some light to these teams and these conferences. And, I think, actually, I'll leave it up to you two. Justin, Matt, take a guess. Take a guess at which team I've selected to root for in 2025 and beyond. It's in the Big Sky.
I was going to say Montana State. They feel like a Michigan team, like a Michigan-type team.
Yeah, so you could Michigan queso a little bit.
It's Montana. I'm choosing Montana, the
Nice.
Grizzlies.
Yeah, we're big fans of Montana, so...
My
yeah.
wife convinced you.
No. So, I was doing my research. I'm a big Michigan Wolverines fan, as you know, Justin. And, what I look for in a program is, team first, disciplined, that blue collar work ethic that, Michigan embodies. There's other teams out there, I guess, but, that to me is what I look for. Just looking at their history and the fan base, I think that, they're building something special out there. Their 26,000 person stadium, it's not the big house, but it probably gets rocking like it sometimes. So, and then just hearing different stories from you and Sam about the just how beautiful it was.
Queso
Kind of sold me.
Queso just popped in the chat, and then he's all ecstatic about it.
I did it for you, Queso. I did it for you.
But you know what's funny about the three of us being on here? Justin is an Ohio State fan. Tony is a Michigan fan. And I am a Notre Dame fan. And we have completed the trifecta of Midwest rivalries.
Speaking of rivalries, that's another thing I look for. I'm used to either being the happiest or the most unhappy, in November. So those big rivalry games, Montana State and Montana, I don't know if you can get too much better.
I mean, technically, I guess you can with one of the other conferences. But, yeah, it's definitely, going forward, going to be a very fun rivalry to watch. Justin, any parting thoughts?
Well, this has been a fun show. I think we can kind of work to wrap this up. If you're tuning in and used to joining us live, I will say this is our last live show until live football has started.
Yep.
We have our preview and prediction season coming. So I don't know, Matt, if you want to kind of go through a little bit of the schedule. We have NFL predictions and previews starting in July. We have college ones for each conference coming in between. Get ready. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel because it is going to be loaded with all sorts of stuff, all sorts of content to bridge the gap between now and the start of football season.
Yes, we will record enough to be able to edit, to be able to post. How we do our NFL episodes is we do the entire conference, post the entire conference, split it up. So if let's say you're AFC South fan, or maybe not a fan of the AFC South, you're just a Titans fan, and you're like, I don't care about these other teams, I just want to hear my team. We then split it up into individual teams to make it easier for everybody to follow along. And we're going to be going through each of those. I like to call it my 40 days of football because 32 conferences, or 32 teams plus 8 conferences, 40 days of football. Justin, in the meantime, will be also throwing in some college football previews with some special guests. Coming up during a lot of my vacation times, I may or may not be able to pop in a few of those. And then Tony and I are going to try to find some time to go over some more MLS talk and see if we can keep any fans that we got from the last episode who may be looking for another sport to get into MLS and hype up the MLS a little bit. So, lot of stuff going forward. Super excited. Like Justin said, like, subscribe. In this particular video, tell us exactly who you root for, because we want to create rivalries in our chat. We want to create friendships in our chat. We want to have a conversation going. So tell us who you root for. We may pop in every now and then to answer some back. And follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, TikTok. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio. There's one more in there. I always forget it. One
of those. Oh, don't forget the
YouTube
Reddit channel too. We could use the Reddit channel for this as well.
Yeah, we do have the Reddit channel. Or not channel, but we have the Reddit page. If you go to our Reddit page, it's not just for things for us to post. Maybe I didn't set it up the right way, but the thought behind the page is that anybody can hop in and talk about football on anything that they want. Just leave out politics, leave out anything offensive, just talk about teams or sports that you want to talk about, and let's build a community of sports. Or let's build this thing from the ground up, turn it into a great thing for everybody. We will catch you guys in the fall. Love you guys. Find us on the internet with our 40 days of football and then some because of Justin's college football content. Justin also has some really good breakdowns on our website. So last parting thoughts. Visit the website. Justin has some good thoughts on some teams. We will catch you guys next time. See you later.